Welcome back, everyone, to Profluent Sports. I have an awesome guest today in Andres Cantor. We are now 1 year out from the 2026 World Cup, so I appreciate you joining us here today and excited for this conversation.
How are you, Andrew? I can't believe that we're 1 year out. It seems like yesterday when I cried when Argentina won the World Cup, December 18th, 2022. They robbed us of 6 months pretty much because usually the World Cup cycles are 4 years, but
Right.
because of the Qatar situation, the summer, the winter, now it's been 3.5 years in between both of them. I can't believe that we're starting to count down the clock to the World Cup here in the U.S., Mexico, and Canada.
What's your you still bullish on them for running it back this World Cup, or how you feeling?
I am. I think they have a great team. Messi has not decided whether he's going to play or not. And regardless of his decision, I think Argentina has a very young, talented group that is still hungry after winning the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. And they showed it by thrashing Brazil without Messi for one in their last fixture at home. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited. How do you feel about the U.S. and where their trajectory is heading into this from the hometown or home country team this
Yeah.
year?
Well, I always say that in regards to pretty much all of the teams, my answer on, how I see them and who do I like has to be given closer to the tournament. It's not because I'm avoiding the question or giving you the answer, is because the players are playing so much at their club level. They play 50, 60 games in a year. So I don't know what U.S. team will show up come the World Cup. Hopefully, the big names, the Christian Pulisic, the Weah, McKennie, Dest, they will all be healthy. Tyler Adams, they will all be healthy, and they will have a good 3 weeks preparation to make it to the quarterfinals. I think the U.S. has to shoot at least for the quarters. We have to remind the listeners that this is an expanded XXL World Cup for the first time ever. It's 48 teams, 104 matches, 39 days of action, lots of traveling, lots of logistics, lots of heat, which is going to be a key factor for some and not for others, because some teams are going to get to play inside domes, which is like kind of crazy. Some teams are going to play in the altitude of Mexico. Some teams will have to go from Toronto to Vancouver. So there's so many things that can happen during the 39 days of the tournament that it's unpredictable. We'll do this podcast again a month out instead of a year out, and I will give you my 2 finalists and my top 3. As a matter of fact, I don't want to brag, but I still have it in my office. I had the bracket before I did the bracket just for my own curiosity and whatever before going to the World Cup in Qatar, and I nailed the final, Argentina-France, with obviously Argentina winning.
That's amazing. Maybe we'll exchange. I'll give you March Madness. I got March Madness right the last 2 years, so you give me World Cup, and then we'll be all set for next year on the major events.
All right.
But we could talk football, soccer all day. I know you do that all the time, so I wanted to change it up a little bit today and spend a little bit more time on the business side of yourself and some of the companies and initiatives you're a part of. And I think a good one to start on is your radio network in Fútbol de Primera. If you could give us a little bit about that, right? People know you as this personality, but there's a lot more behind the scenes. That would be awesome as we touch on that.
Sure. Well, we launched the company with my business partner, Alex Goodman. Actually, he launched it in San Francisco, California, way back in 1987, when there was no way to get informed about how our teams in Latin America did. The internet was not even close to being a reality. There were barely any newspapers, no cable television. So basically, the show that we had was 30-minute show on Sunday night to give out the results of all the leagues in Latin America for our listeners. Then we figured, after studying the marketplace, that there was a niche in the syndication business way back then in the English language market, which was, I would say, also pretty much in its infancy. So we decided to go that route and expand it into 20 to 30 radio stations and did a 30-minute daily show. And then when we solidified a little bit the network, we knew that content is king and that we needed beef to keep growing the company. So we decided to enter the tenders for the FIFA World Cup Spanish language radio rights way back in 2000. We were very fortunate to have been awarded the first two World Cups that we broadcasted in 2002 and 2006. And then, our happiness and everyone's happiness, I guess, was pretty much blown away because, the 9/11 happened. And, we were trying to secure advertising in a very rough time. We had two advertising contracts ready for signatures that never happened because both companies, major retail, one telco, one major retailer, backed out because of the uncertainty of where the world was heading. Uh, and it was a pretty rough welcoming to the world of owning sports rights. So we did better in 2006, and then we entered as incumbents the next tender for the US, and also were able to secure it, and then the next one. So this will be our seventh, and probably the most ambitious because of the nature of the tournament itself.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible just to how much ahead of the curve you were. Now, if you were starting today, right, you'd not built anything, would you go a similar path? Would you use different mediums? Would you go more podcasting? Would you go more social? Like, how would you do it? Or would you do it the same? Or how have you seen the media evolve over time to where it is today? Because
Yeah.
it's pretty
Well,
cool.
actually, it's a great question because my company is in the middle of a transformation to a digital first company. We are still syndicated in nowadays in 100 plus AM and FM stations across the country for the World Cup and for my 1 hour daily show that I host every day at 6 p.m. But obviously, I know where I've been seeing this trend in the last years. And obviously, I know I'm late. I might be a little bit late to join the party, even though, we do have a video component. We had a video component for a while in our daily show, in our broadcast, not with the action itself, but in the pregames, etc. So I see that video is being consumed alongside audio. It's not either or. You can watch, a podcast like yours on YouTube. You can listen to it on the streaming platforms only, but obviously video is a very important component. And we decided to move our offices. I built state of the art. It's pretty much like a mini TV studios where I will have the possibility not of doing things within the soccer world, but we're looking to expand beyond sports into just being a digital first go-to in the Spanish language world, and perhaps down the road after the World Cup when I'm a little bit freer to think about ideas, we will go into the general market and try to tap good talent, lifestyle, cooking, etc. So we're trying to obviously expand and evolve. And to answer your question, if I would do it again, I would probably do it again the same way with the new technologies that are available to us and through a platform. Before, obviously, I needed a radio station to sign with my company for me to be heard. That is obviously still the case. I don't want to get any of my stations offended, but obviously now we turn on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram Live or Facebook Live, and we can amplify our message to a whole bunch of people around the world, actually. So I would do it again, with my eyes closed, with the new technologies to move forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of people always go, oh, timing's everything, but it's also the position you put yourself in and you'll figure it out, right? Like, cool, 20 years ago, radio was the thing, or 30, whenever it started. And then now you would just adjust and adapt, right?
Sure, but I have this because I've been invited to different talks, and I think somebody coined when video started being available on iPads and on iPhones or telephones. Somebody coined the phrase about the second screen,
Hmm.
and I went into a conference and I said, I mean, in my view, there is no second screen anymore. My telephone could be my first screen, and my 75-inch TV could be my second, because I start watching the game wherever I am. Before, you needed to be sitting down on your couch in front of your TV to watch whatever you wanted to watch. Now, I can be having coffee at a Starbucks and watching something and putting stop, and then I get home and I keep on watching on the big screen. And the same thing goes for audio. they said radio is dead. Radio is not. How do you define radio nowadays? It's obviously different than the old transmitter somewhere. You can listen, you can still listen to it in a car. You can listen to it through an old transistor radio that nobody has anymore, I'm pretty sure. But then you can listen to it on your computer, you can listen to on your phone, on your tablet, whatever, and it's still radio. It's audio. It's the word radio has broadened itself. It used to be confined to the airwaves being transmitted by the transmitter into either a car or transistor radio. Not anymore. Radio is delivered in different ways, so we are obviously trying to be on top of that trend, and in the case of my company, being available in all the streaming platforms that we can, the Spotify, the TuneIns, our own proprietary app, you name it, because that is radio today. Those are my affiliates today.
Yeah, and radio is just a term for one way they delivered it, right? It's just, if you really think about it, just audio, and audio went from radio to now a few different ways. And the technology behind audio is changing and how people consume it. And there were some good points there. I'm curious now on, you took yourself as this personality, this on-air talent, working with the big networks, and then went and built your own thing. How do you manage that? How do you do the relationships? How do you keep it church and state, but leverage what a big network's doing for you and keep that, but then also go and build your own thing? But they sort of create this flywheel, which is awesome from a personal standpoint. I'll sort of leave it open-ended at that.
It's been challenging at times, to be honest, because obviously, I worked in television for 40 years plus, and obviously first at Univision, now at Telemundo. I've been, front and center in many of the same events that I own in radio, which was not the case in the period between 2014, because when I left Univision, I used to own the TV rights of the World Cup. I went to Telemundo knowing that I had bought the Spanish language audio rights and that I wanted to devote myself, my pockets, to the enterprise I had just committed to. And since Telemundo didn't have the rights back then, it wasn't a problem. Then 2018 came, Telemundo picked up the Spanish language radio rights, which I had already in radio. And then obviously I had to maneuver the two the best way I could. Obviously, I have a great deal of gratitude to what has happened in my television career throughout the years. I have lots of fun doing radio for the last 35 years, but then I get paid to do what I do on television, and it's my risk and livelihood in my radio company. It's up to me and my business partner, and our sales guys, if we do good or bad, or if we make good decisions or bad decisions in securing properties. The World Cup is not the only one. We are partners with US Soccer, with Concacaf. We've been the Mexican national team radio partner for, 15 years. We've done Copa Americas. Pretty much we call ourselves like the soccer network in Spanish in the US, but that carries a great deal of risks because you have to invest in radio rights, in production, in hiring people, in putting the tournaments together, and obviously I have to do all of that and make sure that everything is aligned on my radio business. At the same time, I'm, being asked to be the face of my networks, of my network in TV, in the most important properties for them as well. So it's been a balancing act.
Yeah, you've done a nice job with it. And something on the Telemundo side is Turner Sports. You guys have a pretty cool announcement that just came out about that. Usually you're commentating in Spanish, but going to be doing this summer, I believe, right? 2025, leading up to it, some English commentary. Any thoughts around that? Or, how is it for you? Like, is there nuance? Like, what's the difference between doing one in Spanish versus English? Right. I would imagine the emotion is probably a little bit better on the Spanish side, but it's just a kid that made Spanish 3 and only knows a few words left. I need to sharpen up my skills.
You're right. I'm going to give you an analogy. It's like, an analogy of 5 years ago, because now everything is electronically. You know how sometimes you went abroad with your cell phone and you changed SIM cards? You bought a local SIM card.
Yeah.
So you went, it's exactly the same thing. I'm wired in Spanish, and when I go into English play-by-play, it's like I'm changing the SIM card to do English play-by-play. Obviously, it's not my first time. I think I probably was the first one to break the barrier to do, the crossover to English when NBC hired me to call the Sydney Olympics in 2000. That was my first introduction to English language play-by-play. Then, as Telemundo is owned by NBC, they had me on selected Premier League matches. I did, I think, a couple of games in the Tokyo Olympics. And then recently, my son, Nico Cantor, works at CBS Paramount Plus. He's a host of a morning show, Morning Footy, and does a wraparound show called the Golazo Show around Champions League, etc. And they paired me up with him in the booth. I called the Mexico-Canada game in March of Nations League. I did play-by-play, he did color. It was the first time father and son were in the same booth, actually, not in the same broadcast, but in the same booth. That was fun. And now I look forward to doing these games of the FIFA Club World Cup first because it's a new tournament. We'll see how it comes out. But basically because I get to call my team, which is Boca Juniors. I'm a die-hard fan of Boca Juniors. I get to call 2 games from them. I get to call Messi in Miami. I get to call 2 Messi games, Miami Porto and Miami Palmeiras. So really looking forward to that because it should be fun. I mean, they're obviously teams I'm very familiar with, so I'm really looking forward to this experience coming up.
That's cool, especially with your son to have that. I'm sure it's pretty cool, special bond to be able to do that. That's pretty cool. I always see, like, from an NBA standpoint in football, the Eagles as well. Like, there's not too many out there like that, so that's awesome. I want to go like business of soccer, just state of soccer, football as a whole. How do you feel about it currently, like globally? Are there any trends, anything you're seeing, right? I can call out a few, but I don't want to, take your talking points, but a lot of American owners going to Europe, a lot of multi-club ownership, huge contracts. Obviously, Saudi Arabia has done some interesting things there. What's interesting to you? What are the trends? What are you seeing that's people should be aware of or at least keeping an eye on?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting that more than half of the Premier League teams, which is probably the most lucrative league in the world, are American. Obviously, they go there for the business. I wish I could say the passion, but I do not know the owner, so I don't know how much passion the Fenway Group has for Liverpool. I'm pretty sure they do, but I don't know if as much as the Red Sox or whatever. But I'm not gonna get there because I don't know. But obviously, they go there for the business. It's the Premier League is a huge business in Europe, so that is why we have so many American owners. I think the soccer world has to be on the lookout for Saudi Arabia because they're doing to soccer what they did to golf with Live. They're just throwing money left and right to superstars like Cristiano Ronaldo, but then to a fairly, I wouldn't say average, but to a fairly good player that would probably make half of the money that they're offering in Saudi Arabia. And that is a trend that is happening, which is, I would suppose, kind of dangerous for the top leagues because they're stealing talent, some of them in their prime, most of them like on the other side of the curve, but still offering them contracts that nobody can compete with. There is the business of soccer is tremendous. The Champions League is another great example of how well soccer does around the world. Even on this side of the world, Copa Libertadores, which is the equivalent in South America, suddenly has become very lucrative to the winning team. In Brazil, just to give you another example, the champion of the last tournament took home $18 million as prize money, which is not bad in Brazilian terms. And then you have to remember that they keep the gate 100% and they fill the stadiums every other weekend and they have sponsorship. So obviously the Brazilian league is probably the most lucrative in all of Latin America. So I think soccer is thriving all over the world, and everyone, I guess, wants to get involved, being at the top level, or like we've seen with the Wrexham story, at the very low entry point, and just dreaming of making it to the top divisions to make more money.
Yeah, and for every one of those, there's a lot of stories of people that lose a lot of money, but it is really cool to see them succeed and have the media attention and documentaries and all that around it. I'm curious, and we'll round out with this. How do you feel about some of these new alternative, or I sometimes call them like miniaturized versions of the game coming in with, like the Baller League, King? You got some of these unique 7-on-7 tournament that they run in America. How do
Yeah.
you feel about some of those, and where's the game going?
Yeah, honestly, I know that they are around. Honestly, I should pay more attention, and I don't. I know it's entertainment. Obviously, if they're still around, it's probably good business for whoever runs those leagues. And I think it's probably a different public that they go after, because if you take, I mean, I'm not the best case study, but I probably watch a game every day of the week. There is a game that I need to watch for my profession somewhere. And if not, I taped it and I watched, if there's nothing going on a Monday, I'll get to it on a Monday. There's enough real soccer for people and fans to watch around the world. And with today's technology, you can watch literally any game from any league at any given time. So I don't know who has the appetite for the other 7 against 7, the Kings League. I find it, obviously, I'm in the business side of things, and I know it's entertainment, but I know being a soccer professional, I should pay a little bit more attention, but I don't. So I can't give you a definite answer of why I think, because I don't know what they're doing.
Fair enough. Have you done any of the video games? Have you been the voice in any of those?
I have not. I have actually, way back in the day when the video games were VHS, on VHS tapes. After that, I did not do any. I mean, the first thing, there's two things that people ask me or tell me all the time. One is my Simpsons appearance. I was a character on The Simpsons. It's like, I devoted 40 years of my life calling games, 250 games a year. And, nowadays it's me crying in the final of the World Cup, and you made it to The Simpsons, you're get out of jail free. You made it. And then why aren't you on A or one of those video games? I never got called. That's the reality.
Not yet, at least. So.
Not yet.
Super cool. Anything else? Well, first off, I just appreciate you coming on. Anything else you think is important that we haven't touched on, or you want to get to from the personal side, soccer, World Cup, whatever it is?
Well, just looking, I think from a business standpoint, I think the next World Cup in the US, Mexico, and Canada will be the biggest business ever. Probably, maybe LA will top it, but I'm not sure. To this day, the 1994 World Cup still stands as the World Cup that sold the most tickets. It was 2.9 million tickets. They're going to double that. There's going to be 6 million tickets sold. I think there's going to be probably upwards of $5 billion in revenue just in ticket sales. Cities all over the US, Mexico, and Canada, wherever they're going to have the World Cup, are going to have a lot of money coming in from tourism, from sponsors, etc. So I think it's going to be the biggest business, let alone the biggest World Cup, 11 against 11 on a soccer pitch, but it's going to be probably the biggest business sporting event that this country has ever hosted. And we'll see if LA 28 tops it, but it's going to be very interesting to follow that angle of the World Cup, because, they say that the World Cup is not that popular in the US, and this will prove. Obviously, there is a worldwide event which is being hosted in the US, but if there weren't any interest whatsoever, I mean, half of the sponsors that FIFA has signed for this cycle are American companies. And as far as I know, all the cities are super excited and selling local sponsorships. So I think we're going to enjoy the greatest spectacle of all times in all sense of the word.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. I've never been to a World Cup match, so excited to get to a few.
You have to.
Yeah, and then 48 teams, like you said. So that's, if it's not the biggest one, then I think it's a pretty big letdown. So it should be pretty fun. And then I think Women's World Cup too is coming to the US not too far, 2031. So fun decade ahead of sports, especially in football, soccer in the US.
Well, we have 26, the World Cup, 28, the LA Olympics, and 31, the FIFA Women's World Cup. So we're going to have lots of fun with, 2 and 3 years in between.
Yeah, and then I think if winter, well, I guess soccer's not in the Winter Olympics, but we have that too. Yeah. Anyway, Andres, appreciate you coming on today and sharing your wisdom. And we'll post everything for your socials and everything for people to check out
All right.
as well.
Thank you so much, Andrew.